Here at the Prince of Wales School, we're in a process at the moment of emerging from lockdown. I'm just going to give you a quick tour really and show you what the children are experiencing now as they arrive at school, because it is very different. This is the board that children see when they first arrive at school, and it helps set out the general organisation and the layout of the school building now. Many schools have adopted a group or bubble approach. We've actually adopted kingdoms here, so each child now belongs to a new kingdom. And each one of those children stay with that kingdom all day, and they're not allowed to go and visit other kingdoms until it's safe to do so. They now work on a one-way system, so we've had to restructure how the school's set out, and we've got different sort of things to support that. So we've got, I'm just going to show you, we've got new markers on the floor. A lot of the children think this looks like the Batman symbol, and we've got little things like, you know, red tape now separating different areas up and about. So just making sure that we provide some visual reminders to the children about keeping safe and keeping distance. We've got other things on the floor. So we've got our 2 meters to remind children to keep 2 meters apart. Ultimately, we're not strictly enforcing social distancing because we're working with very young children. It would be unfair for us to in any way discipline them for not keeping a distance from each other. Some of my children here are as young as 2 years, 9 months. So they're very, very young. We're going to go through into our year 1 classroom. Traditionally, this room would have 32 children in, and now this space has become a classroom for 15. So we've halved the number of children that are using this space. Alongside that, each child now has their own space, and you can see that those spaces are labelled, and we've made sure there's distance between each of those spaces. And then in addition to that, each child will now have their own set of resources, because traditionally we would have shared resources. So we might have a big pencil pot, and, you know, I'm sure you can remember what it was like when you were at school. You've got your scissor tray, your ruler tray, and all those different trays. All of that's had to go. And inside of there, they'll have their own colouring pens, their own books, their own maths resources, their own pair of scissors, their own glue stick, and even their own Play-Doh. There's now hand sanitizer stations as we enter each space. A new sign as well, welcoming them to their new kingdom. We've moved into the classroom next door now. We've got 32 children, and that's what we would normally have in this space. And you'll see that, again, it's been set up for 15 children. So you can see the separation in desks there. Resources that would previously be accessed are now hidden. So these have been covered in paper. So things that they don't need have been put away, and only essential items are available in their individual resource trays. And that's been really important. What our biggest challenge is space, because ultimately, as we've needed to create more classrooms, because our classrooms have moved from being of 30 into 15, naturally you need more spaces. So we've had to start being inventive. So an example of that is that this area I'm walking into now would normally be a corridor, connecting classroom spaces with our library, and our library is now in the corridor. This would normally be our library, and this has now become a classroom space for reception. We're doing the same with our staff room. Our staff room is gone, and that's now become a classroom space. And we're looking at converting other spaces, such as our school hall and intervention spaces, so that they can be used as classroom teaching spaces moving forward. The room that we're walking into now would normally be our reception classroom, and would normally have the full space behind me. I'm sure you can kind of see that there's a wall that's been erected, and we've had to do that to create a walkway and keep a separation between the two groups of children that are working in reception. This is our reception outdoor provision. Normally the children would have all of this provision here, and they'd have more provision around the corner as well. So we look around the corner, and they would have this outdoor provision as well. Create this kind of no man's land now between the two zones. We've had to put this red tape up. And because we've got 2 kingdoms here, we've got one kingdom to the right and one kingdom to the left, and those children aren't allowed to mix together. So at the moment, we have no idea how long we're going to continue working in this way. The initial guidance was just around children in early years, reception, and, well, which is part of early years, year 1 and year 6. We don't know at this moment in time when other year groups will join us, and obviously when that happens, it will put further strain on space and staffing in schools. At the moment, I've been able to staff each of my kingdoms with 2 members of staff. So I've got 2 members of staff working with 15 children, which is a great ratio. But obviously, as more children come into school, those ratios are going to be affected.